Hello and welcome back to the Cisco Learning Network podcast. In this episode, we are going to continue talking with Yusuf Bhaiji, Senior Manager of Global Certifications at Cisco. This will be the third episode we talk with Yusuf about the changes being made to the Cisco Certification program. In the first two episodes about Cisco Certification portfolio evolution, Yusuf provided us with a high-level overview of what is changing and why, and the specifics behind what's changing at the Network Associate or CCNA level. Now, in this third episode, we will get an idea from Yusuf about what's changing in the professional or CCNP level of certification. So let's listen in to the next part of this interview between Cisco Learning Network Community Manager Brett Lovins and Yusuf Bhaiji as they talk about the professional level certification changes that go into effect February 2020. Here's Brett.
All right, welcome everybody. Welcome back to another episode of our podcast on the changing Cisco certification program. We're really stoked to have Yusuf joining us again. In this podcast, we're going to pivot over and start talking about the professional level certifications, those CCNPs out there that are either in flight or have a CCNP or have been considering the professional level certification. They're going to want to listen in. So Yusuf, welcome back. Maybe in case those that haven't listened to the previous podcast, just real quick tell the audience a little bit about yourself, and then we'll get right into some questions.
Thank you, Brett, for having me. So my name is Yusuf Bhaiji. I'm the Senior Manager for the Certifications Program team. My team is primarily responsible for the design, development, and delivery of the certification program. So everything from CCNA, CCNP, and CCIE program. And I'm very excited to be here to share with you some details on the new CCNP framework and the evolution. So yeah, thank you for having me.
Right on. Yeah, and there's some pretty interesting changes here. So I'm going to start to sound like a broken record to those that listened to the previous podcast on the associate level certs. But in this case, let's just get into it, Yusuf. Why don't you talk about, the why of it, which is really important, and then we'll kind of move into the what.
Absolutely. And I think that's important that we kind of reinforce the message that if you haven't listened to the previous podcast, which was the overview of the why and the what, it would be nice that if you could go back and listen to that one as well. But we'll just summarize it that one of the most important change is happening in the certification program in this paradigm, that what we are witnessing right now in the industry is a huge technology explosion, right? We are all witnessing that so much is changing around us in the IT world. So job roles are changing, the demand for new skills, the expectation from the hiring manager, the job roles, everything is changing around us. And it's a very fast-paced industry right now. So it was very important for us in the certification team to analyze and review all that change happening around us and to align the community and to enable the community to provide a structure, to provide a program that is very relevant to them, that is very flexible and agile for them. So we really thought this through entirely from end to end. So one thing important for the listeners is that this is not just a small change that we've just changed the blueprint or the exam topics and the number of exams. This is a massive change, and you really need to understand all the different components and different intricacies and how we have evolved the program. So I think the first thing, Brett, I would like to go into is the CCNP framework, right? And for people who are already aware of the CCNP framework, we have roughly 8 to 9 different certification tracks in the CCNP. So like CCNP route switch, CCNP collaboration, data center, security, and so forth. So what we've done is now we have aligned that to the 5 architectures that Cisco has, which is enterprise, service provider, data center, security, and collaboration. So we mentioned in the previous podcast on the associate level that we removed all the flavors or what we call branching at the associate level. So the associate level is now targeting or focusing fundamentally on the foundational knowledge of the IP networking. And then as a person progresses the career, they pursue the professional level credential or certification, and they choose one of their specialty or specialization, that what area they wanted to be focusing on, and that could be either enterprise, SP, DC, security, or collaboration. So this new evolved framework is fundamentally, if I could kind of give 2 or 3 keywords, that what is changing fundamentally is we are being now agile. There is agility in it. There are choices. There's modularity and customization. So if you think about it, it's the opposite of one size fits all. And we are moving away from that paradigm of one size fits all. We are being more modular. We are being more flexible and giving the control, giving the power to the community, to the user to drive their own destiny and design their own certification. So it's kind of, there is flexibility in it. So with that, I think that's kind of the main high level why, and then I can go more into the details of what is changing.
Wonderful. And you touched on CCNA, which was in the previous podcast. So if you haven't listened to that, go back. But let me just ask that question or statement, really. CCNA is no longer a requirement for CCNP. Is that accurate?
Absolutely, and a very, very important change in the new CCNP framework, that CCNA is no longer a prerequisite. And the reason for that was fundamentally, again, driving towards that flexibility and choices, that we want to put the customer in the driving seat, right? So as a person decides where are you in your career, like what point are you in your career? Are you kind of starting your career 1 or 2 years into the industry, or are you kind of in a seasoned person? You've been working in the industry for 3 to 5 years, or are you like a very mature expert? So we didn't want to do a lot of repetition, and we wanted to give that flexibility and choice to the customer so they can decide where do they want to start their journey. So if you go from left to right, from associate to professional to the expert level certification, you have absolute flexibility. You can start your certification program at any point, no prerequisites.
Yeah, and that's what really struck me when I looked at the framework, Yusuf. And for those of you listening, you can go to cisco.com/go/next level. That's next level, no dashes, all one word. And you can see the framework as well, because I think visually it's pretty striking, the flexibility that Yusuf is talking about, where you start, and really you can jump around in a very interesting way.
Yeah, and with that, I think that's a good segue for me to kind of now start dwelling into the actual structure or the framework and what is changing. So let me go into that now. So first thing is just to give you a historical perspective. Today, currently, what people know CCNP, the current program, it is generally from anywhere from 3 to 4 exam models. So some CCNP certification require 3 exams to complete the certification requirement, and some require 4 exams to complete. So what we have done is now we have completely evolved that, and now the new CCNP framework is a 2 exam model, 1 + 1. And I want to really go deeper and explain what these 2 exams are, because there's some science behind it and some thought process behind it and how we structured this 2 exam model. So what we do is, again, when you go to the website on cisco.com/nextlevel, you will realize that there are 2 components or 2 exam requirements to complete CCNP certification. The first exam, we call it core exam or technology core exam. The technology core exam basically is the foundation, what we call the common body of knowledge that is required by every engineer. So let's take an example. If I'm pursuing CCNP security, right? So regardless of the different variation that can go down in a split way in the security field, I could be a design consultant, I could be a support technician, I could be a network engineer, or I could be an security automation engineer. There are different ways you can go down in your career in the job role for the security. But what we wanted to do is find that common body of knowledge or shared knowledge that every security engineer should know. And that is what our new technology core exam is about. What are those fundamental core knowledge that every security engineer needs to know? And that is the new blueprint, which we call technology core. So that is the first exam that people have to take. The second exam is called the concentration exam. Concentration, as the name implies, is basically it's a deeper dive into a particular area of subject. It could be a product, it could be a technology, it could be a solution, right? So it depends on the job role, what you're pursuing, and that is where the power of flexibility comes in this new evolved framework. That now we are, like I said, no one size fits all. Is you could be, like I just gave an example, you could be a design consultant in security, or you could be a day two support engineer. So you may decide to choose different exams depending on your career. So the concentration gives you that pool of exams, variety of pool of exams that you can pick one from. So you need to pick only one exam out of this concentration pool, which becomes your second exam requirement. So you finish the core and the concentration and you become the CCNP certified engineer. And that is true for all our tracks, whether you're pursuing CCNP enterprise or CCNP data center or collaboration. There will be two exams. One will be the technology core and the second one will be the deep dive concentration. So it's kind of half and half. 50% of the knowledge is common, as I described, and the other 50% is flexible and choices and customized. It's kind of, you can decide. Which kind of leads me to the point about the incremental recognition that we have recently announced also as part of this evolution, that moving forward, every exam that a person takes in the Pearson VUE exam structure, you will get what we call a specialist certification badge. So each exam equals to a badge. So in the past, what used to happen is when you pursued your CCNP certification program, there was no reward until the end of the journey, like the final destination. So imagine you had to take 4 exams. When I pass my first exam, do I get anything? No. You pass your second exam? No. Until I finish all 4 exams, then a person used to get the CCNP logo and the CCNP credential. What we are changing now is what we call that incremental recognition, or as you go. We are going to recognize and reward you, and every exam will yield a specialist certification badge, which is a very powerful mechanism for people that they have now the flexibility to do anything. They can choose any particular area of subject, like I said, a product, a technology, or a particular job role, and they can be a specialized in. And specialist certification is a standalone in itself. But what we call it a double dip concept, that if you choose a concentration exam, it will act as a specialist certification standalone, plus it will give you the leverage of that second half of the CCNP requirement. So now you only need to take the core to complete the journey, if that makes sense.
It absolutely does. And again, I think folks, if you get a chance to look at the framework or the visual on this. So here's a scenario, Yusuf, is I take the core exam and then I pass a concentration. I'll have several to choose from. And then I decide, you know what? I want to learn about some other thing in another track. I can do that. And to your point, your incremental, reward, now you have a specialist certification badge to add to your, your resume, or to let the boss know that, I'm certified to know this other thing that's not necessarily part of that particular track.
That's what we call, you can change swim lanes, right? So you could be pursuing CCNP security as your career, but there was this, let's say, SD-WAN technology that is very important and critical in your network, and SD-WAN probably is an enterprise technology, not part of your security curriculum, but you can still take SD-WAN exam and become a specialist and kind of, publish your specialist logo and the badge, but that gives you the control and flexibility to pick and choose and create your own sort of, profile, personalized profile.
Wonderful. As part of this too, I know that DevNet is offering certification. So a person could be an engineer, traditional networking engineer doing, say, security, pass that core, pass, a concentration, and then maybe begin adding, programmability certifications as specialists, or do their whole track and get their NP as well.
Absolutely. And that's where it kind of, crosses over that now we have two parallel programs, one for the infrastructure engineer, so all the 5 architectures that I described earlier, which is basically the current network engineer job role. And then we have the software specialist portfolio, which is for the application developer and programmers, and all the automation that is happening in the network side of the fence. So we have designed specific curriculums and offerings for the automation side of the fence, and you can take that one exam. So it could be security automation or enterprise automation or collaboration automation, and that will still become your individual specialist badge, but it can also count towards one of your concentration exam that is half of the requirement for your CCNP track. So really this new model is very, very powerful, very flexible and modular, and it allows you to customize depending on your needs, and it gives you more value to kind of showcase your skills, because you don't need to complete a whole new CCNP track just to do that one single exam. You get it standalone specialist qualification. And to compare that, Brad, the other lens or optics to this is, think of it from a macro level and a micro level. So the macro level is when you kind of group 2 things together or 3 things together. So in my view, macro level is the CCNP certification, because we have grouped 2 things together. There's a technology core and this concentration. So you do 2 requirements, 2 exams, and you become CCNP. But the micro level is the specialist portfolio. And specialist portfolio is every exam, standalone, every single exam, whether you take the technology core or whether you take the concentration from any of those 5 architectures, and you get the micro level, which is more deeper into that stack of that whichever technology track, whether enterprise or security. So essentially what I'm saying is now the person has the ability to do what we call granular credentialing, right? It is more detailed, more focused credentialing.
Yep, and it's so fun to talk about this stuff. So, you talked about flexibility, and I think we're going to talk at length about this too, but why don't we just bolt on a little bit of information around the continuing education option as well, as long as we're talking about flexibility with this.
Right. And that's a very, very new thing for CCNP, and it has been kind of a huge demand. So as people know, continuing education is one of the alternate methods that we introduced around 1.5 years ago, almost 2 years ago, I believe, for the CCIE program. And it was definitely well perceived. And now continuing education is evolving and expanding to all certifications. So whether you're pursuing CCNA, CCNP, or CCIE, you can use continuing education for your recertification process. One more thing just came to my mind, that there is a recertification policy is 3 years, 3 fixed years, and that is across all our programs. So regardless of CCNA, CCNP, CCIE, we have now unified the recertification cycle to 3 years. Now within this 3 years, you have to recertify, and you have different options, and that is where continuing education program comes. We are giving you again the flexibility that if you're good in taking exams and you want to expand your profile and get more specialist certification badges, then yeah, that's a good way. You can take multiple exams and recertify. But alternatively, you can attend trainings, right? You can take trainings, you can take online trainings or classroom trainings from our portfolio, from our catalog, and that will give you continuing education credits. And we have a set of requirements, like depending on the track, CCNA, CCNP, CCIE, that you need to get X number of continuing education credits via any activity. And those activity could be either training, it could be attending Cisco Live, it could be contributing towards our exam items and the pool of questions. It could be any number of combination. But here's the most important one. that now we are also giving the flexibility to do both, or hybrid, I should say. So you can combine or mix and match the continuing education program with the exam recertification. Currently, today in the CE program, it was one or the other. Like either you take the exam or you take the continuing education credits. What I'm saying now, moving forward after February cutover in 2020, you have the flexibility to mix and match. You can take one exam and one training. It depends on how many credits. So, for example, for the CCNP, you need 80 continuing education credits. So 80 credits you have to build. Now, whether you build it via taking one concentration exam, or one technology core exam, or two trainings, or you can attend Cisco Live, or any permutation, any combination. And that's where you need to go more into the detail on the website and check out the policy for the continuing education. But it's a very powerful tool, very flexible, so please do check it out.
Let's wrap the professional level one up here with a question that you kind of alluded to. So we're going to have some people listening in that have already started on their path to CCNP. Maybe they've been preparing, or maybe they've even passed one or more exams. And you mentioned February 2020 as the cutover. Why don't you speak directly to those candidates, where they are in their journey, and what you'd recommend that they do as we prepare for that change?
Absolutely. And so one thing I wanted to clarify earlier, that this new program, the CCNP framework evolution, is going to go in production, and the new exams will be available on 24th February 2020. So there is enough time. There is approximately, while you're listening to this, there's approximately 8 months or so for you to continue your journey. So for those people so there are two camps of people. There are people who are already CCNP certified, and then there are people who are in flight. They are still halfway through or 3/4, and they're still kind of completing their journey. So for the people who have already completed CCNP, we have created a transition plan to give you a new home. So if you are, for example, CCNP routing and switching certified, we will transition you to the new CCNP enterprise certification. If you are a CCNP wireless, we will transition you to the CCNP enterprise certification, plus we will give you additional concentration badges, the specialist certification badges, depending on what you are today, like you are a CCNP security or CCNP wireless or CCNP route switch. And to find out more details, you need to check out our migration plan and transition plan online on cisco.com/next level, and that way you will understand what are you going to be transitioned to depending on what you are today. So that's the first camp, that people who are already certified. For the second camp, people who are halfway through, my first suggestion is please continue and complete your journey, because that's the best way to get the most value out of this transition plan. If you have already done one exam or two exams in your CCNP journey, please finish your journey, your current journey. You still have 8 months to go. That's plenty of time to complete your journey. Now, even if you are, for some reason, if you are not able to complete your journey, what we have done is we have created a one-to-one mapping for the migration. So hypothetically, if you only had taken one exam out of the 3 or out of the 4, only one exam, then people would ask, where does that leave me? I just took only one exam. Don't worry, we will transition you to the corresponding new portfolio and give you a new home. So it could be a mapping of 1-to-1, or it could be a mapping of 2-to-1. So for example, in some situations, a combo of 2 exams will land you in one of the new portfolio, because remember, we are restructuring the entire portfolio, right? So in many occasions, you will find that it's not a direct 1-to-1 relationship in the old portfolio and the new portfolio. It could be a 2-to-1 relationship, or the other way around. So please look at the migration details online, because that's plenty of information there. But I just wanted to highlight those 2 things.
Well, this has just been excellent. We could talk. I love this, Yusuf. I know we're going to have a lot more chatter on the Cisco Learning Network, so I'll be probably in communication with you to help me answer specific questions that I can. But I'm getting my head around it, and it's really it looks very exciting, very progressive, and like you say, very flexible. Candidates can hop in anywhere and gain value with Cisco certifications anywhere by doing the specialist, and then also potentially do the core exams as well. And now you're starting to get those NPs together, which is just wonderful.
Absolutely. So really, thank you so much for listening. Thank you for having me, and stay tuned for more.
That's it for our interview with Yusuf about the changes being made to the professional level of certification. Be sure to tune in to our next episode about the changes being made to our expert or CCIE level. To learn more about the new certification and training portfolio, please visit the Cisco Learning Network, where you'll find more resources explaining the changes and a community network ready to support you and answer your questions. We plan to talk with Yusuf and other experts more in future episodes, so please subscribe to our podcast so you'll know when they become available. And if you could take a minute to leave us a review on iTunes, we'd appreciate it. Thanks for listening.